Welcome, low ego action heroes. This is Debbie Levitt from deltacx.com. We're a full service CX and UX consultancy. Check us out. You never know what we can do for you. And welcome to episode 3 of Think Out Loud. These episode numbers do not match with the live stream podcast episode numbers. Do not try to match them up. The Think Out Loud series is where I am going to do realistic information architecture, UX design, and other similar work. And I'm going to think out loud as I do it so that you can learn more about how I approach my work. I find that too often in UX, people show you inputs and outputs, and you are supposed to magically guess how we got there. So I'm going to show you how the sausage is made by making the sausage live. I'll also be taking your questions. So if you're watching live, please ask questions. And if you are watching this later archived in the Think Out Loud playlist, please ask your questions in the YouTube comments. I answer every question personally, so ask away. And of course, if Chris B is watching, hello, Chris B. A quick thank you to the people who financially support the channel by being members on YouTube. It's totally optional, but very appreciated. And our mid-level and senior low-ego action heroes are Anita, Chang, Darren, I don't know who that is, Irena, Jordan, Michelle, Nikki, Ralitza, Ray, Solomon, and of course the fabulous Mix Betty. Thanks to everybody for your financial support. Totally optional. Before you ask, everything you'd want to know is here. If you have questions about how to sign up for this weekend's Axure course, if you want to know how to ask me questions on Tuesdays, if you want to know how to enter the free giveaway, everything is here. deltacx.com/links. Just go there. All questions shall be answered. All right, so let's set up the screen for with my Axure file, and I'll catch everybody up to the short version of what we've done in episodes 1 and 2 of Think Out Loud, so that you know where I'm picking up from. And this series is going to kind of continue from previous ones, so you may want to collect them all and watch them all. So let's see, which button do I have to press? This one, I think. All right, so you should be seeing my screen. What? Ready to install update. I installed the update. What's up with that? I'm using the software. Is that not showing up? Are we having a grumpy Axure day? That's a very grumpy Axure day. That's not my screen at all. Okay, hold on. Let's go back to me for a moment. Let's try quitting Axure and reopening it, because that's fun. So while we do that, let me remind everybody that we've got lots of shows coming up. If you want to know what shows are coming up, check the schedule. deltacx.com/links also has the schedule. Lots of stuff coming up and new programs. Let me attempt to open Axure again. And meanwhile, let me catch you up on what the project is. So a few weeks ago, I asked people to give me a fake but realistic project that I could build live. And I was sent a project that had to do with time management. So the idea was that people, there were a few different target audiences. People were going to have to build something for different users. We had end users who were going to have to track their time. We had project managers or higher level users who were going to put in project estimates and compare them to the time the team is spending. And then we had kind of higher level management who might want to see maybe a dashboard of what the hell is going on here, and are we not meeting our time estimates? Are we running overtime? How's time being spent? So we started episode 1 was how would I approach the research for this? And in episode 2, we started designing. And here in episode 3, I am continuing designing. And let's see if I can flip back and let's see if this works or if I'm hitting the wrong button. How's this look? That looks the same, doesn't it? That's not right. All right, let's try some different buttons. I tested this out. Okay, so what if I just do this and then I flip over to Axure? Are people seeing Axure? Okay, I think this is working now. People are seeing Axure and not the thing about that. Okay, so you should see log your time, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, week total. So if you watch episode 2, you'll see how I built this, and you will see some of the interactive things that I built into Axure. Now, I don't have the time to teach everybody Axure while I'm building this. You can always take my Axure courses, but you will see me build stuff in Axure, though I won't always stop to explain it in detail. So we are picking up on the end user version of the design, how people are going to log their time. And we talked about how we are, let's see if I can flip over to this. Is this still a good preview? We are going to use our preview here to take a look at what we're building. Now, that's another reason why I build in Axure. That way, as I go, I can see, does this idea seem to have any legs? Is this going to be a good match to user and customer needs? Does it match what we're trying to build? So last week I built this thing where you can put in your time on different projects, and as you go, Axure will add it up. So I can say I worked 6 hours here and 8 hours here and all that. We talked last week about what else we would build here. And one thing that I thought about during the vacation, I've been away, I'm back, was I was thinking about the stuff that we've learned from Larry Marine. So if you aren't familiar with that, you'll want to go into the micro lessons playlist, and you'll want to check out task analysis and optimized task flow, task analysis personas, and knowledge design. And I thought about how Larry talks about how we're really doing our best design when we think about things that make people make mistakes, error prone, manually intensive, so having to do a lot of repetitive or manual work, cognitively demanding, don't make me think, and knowledge dependent. Now, we tackled this last time when we talked about how we didn't want people to have to find what projects they're on, because that's knowledge that they may or may not have. They might not remember the number of their project or the name of it. So we would simplify by making sure that people only saw projects they were assigned to. This means later on, when we build the project managers version, we're going to have to build a way for them to assign people to projects and estimated timing. Surya says, hi Debbie, what software are you using? This is Axure version 10. Hashtag not sponsored. I pay them. They do not pay me. I do everything in Axure. I completely live in Axure. So we used knowledge design for that. Now, I thought we should use it another way too. And one way that Larry talks about is, can we use intelligent defaults? Is there a default here that would save people manual entry, that would save them cognitive load? So again, thinking about how the sausage is made in UX design, I'm always asking myself, how can I simplify this? And specifically, how can I improve these things for the user? So again, manually intensive, cognitively demanding, error prone, likely to make mistakes, and knowledge dependent, so requiring knowledge or memory. And I realized from something I saw recently that it might make sense for us to add a couple of more buttons or functions here. Now, I'll throw them on as buttons, but I might rework it later. And that thought was, hey, maybe people are working the same hours every week. Why should they have to come back here and go 8, 8, 8, 8, 8, you know? Or 8 for the Larry, 4 for the Larry project, 4 for the helicopter project. They might be working the same hours on these projects each week because that's what they were allocated or required, and that's what they did. So could there be one easy button that solves that problem for people and reduces the risk of making a mistake, and also the cognitive load and the manual entry? And I figured we could make a button. So obviously the key call to action is, I'm done here, submit my time. But there's another thing that could happen here, and that is same hours as last week. Now, again, it would be better if we had a writer or a content strategist or someone who does content design to write something better than what I'm saying, but I'll at least put it in as a placeholder. And I previously built some components. Let's grab a secondary button, and let's go back to our design, and we will say secondary button. And maybe, let's see, I'm just going to drop it in a certain spot and then I might move it around later. But let's move it down a little bit. That's okay for now. And so maybe there is an option here for, let's say this doesn't line up. I'm not usually pixel perfect, but I don't want it to be too sloppy. So this would be x equals 505. Maybe this says same as last week. And again, someone in content could do a better job with that, but that at least is the intention of this button and how I would have it function. So that means that the system would know what hours I put in last week. All I would have to do is press one button and those hours would go in again. Now, if I wanted to prototype this, I don't know what people entered in last week, but I can fake it out by saying, when I click this button, hey, Axure, write a bunch of numbers into these boxes. Now, this was called Project 1 Monday input, and this was Project 1 Tuesday input. These should all say project. These don't have names yet. So very quickly, let's give these names. You have to name stuff in Axure so that you can refer to it. So this is Project 1 Monday input. I'm sorry, Project 2. Let's give all of these names. And that way I'm able to tell Axure when somebody clicks this button, write some numbers in here, or as I'm thinking of doing after that, what about a clear all the values? What if I have it put in values from last week and I realize, oh man, these don't look anything like what I wanted. Maybe we should have some sort of clear option. But again, these are ideas that I'm playing with. But if I want to play with them, to me, I want to bring them to life in Axure. I really don't like to just build something and say, yep, good enough, next thing. I try to spend more time looking at it, playing with it, testing the prototype, trying to put myself in the user's shoes and see, did I make something that is easy to learn, easy to use, and doesn't add all the evils we've talked about all the time. So I can say when someone clicks same as last week, and yeah, these things don't line up very well. I'm a sloppy person. This is why I'm always grateful to the visual designers who make my stuff better. So I can say if someone clicks on same as last week, so hey Axure, if someone clicks on this, I want to write some text in a bunch of places. And Axure says, great, where do you want to write that text? So I could say, well, on Project 1 Monday, let's have it say 4. And I have to write add target. And on Project 2 Monday, let's have it say 4. And ultimately, I could keep building this, and I could make it so that a whole bunch of defaults come in on the assumption, again, that this was coming from the system and the system understood and remembered or has a record of what you entered last week. But just to do the short version of this, I'll say on Tuesday, 6 hours for Project 1, and let's just do a quickie for Project 2 Tuesday, and we'll call it 2. Now, I don't have Project 2 adding up yet. I do have Project 1 adding up. See how this totals things up? I don't have it built the other way yet, but let's refresh and take a look at this. Ray says, it's cool to see how your mind works. That is the whole point of this stream and this entire series. So now if I click same as last week, these numbers will go in. So I didn't fill it all in because you're going to get bored watching me do that. But you can see how this would save a lot of time for people who tend to be allocated to one or more projects and they've worked the correct number of hours. But that doesn't mean I can't go in here and go, oh, you know what? Tuesday was a little bit funky. I worked 5 here and I worked 3 here. So this will still be editable for people, but at least this intelligent default should be able to save people time where they tend to do week after week the same amount of work on the projects that they're on. Brian says, I haven't seen Axure before. The interaction editor seems pretty powerful. It's very powerful. Go watch episode 2. I blew some minds. Now, another thing that we could do, so hypothetically what I would do if I wanted to build this out more realistically, especially for usability testing, let's stop usability testing unrealistic prototypes. I would have this add up this way. And I would have things add up this way. I would have all the Mondays add up. I would have all the Tuesdays add up. And I would have it give people an error message if they worked more than their allotted time. So say, for whatever reason, people are legally only allowed to work up to 8 hours in a day. If I put 4 here and I put 5 here, there's nothing right now that says, hey, either you made a mistake or we're going to have to get your time specially approved in order for this to be accepted. Now, we did this last week, it wasn't last week, last episode with the project horizontally. So for example, if I said, yeah, I worked 40 hours, we have it so that an error comes up on any number over 40 and says, hey, working more than 40 hours a week is going to require manager approval. I would build the same thing going vertically. If somebody works more than 8 hours in a day or whatever, maybe they're part-time for your company and they can only work 4 hours a day. I've worked at companies where they wanted no more than 6 hours in a day, whatever. So I would have that math add up the other way, and I would have it add up in all ways, and that way people can see, is there a potential problem? So here I've made a mistake. Oh, well, I didn't mean to write 40, I meant to write 4. Okay, mistake fixed, error message goes away. We built that in Acture in episode 2. So these are some of the things that I would do. Another thing that we can do is maybe I would use a tertiary link. So we'll copy this guy. And I would say clear, just in case for some reason I want to start fresh. I don't like what I'm seeing here. So again, don't go too much by some of my locations of buttons. I tend to clean things up later, or get some help from visual designers who are more pixel perfect than I am. But let's say we have something called, clear or clear all, clear values, however you want to, again, I need help with the copy, and there you go. Now, to build this in Acture doesn't have a clear all feature. I have to build the same thing I built before, so I'm going to cheesily copy and paste. I have to tell Acture, go set the text on these things, but set the text to blankness. So I can copy this interaction, I can paste it on clear all, but now I've got to sneak into each one of these and say, nope, set this one to emptiness, set this one to emptiness. So you can see I'm building a realistic clearing, but I have to manually go into each one to clear it. There isn't something in Acture that says clear things. You have to tell Acture, write the text here, and the text is blankness. Surya says, why is it only calculating the above one, but not the one below? Because I didn't build the one below. Last time we built calculating the one above, notice there isn't even a 0 here. I didn't build it for the one below, only because this isn't an Acture lesson. This is more about UX design, and so I didn't want to duplicate the same thing. You could certainly do it. So we can now test our clear all. So let's refresh. And I could say same as last week, and I get our fake numbers. And then I could say clear all, and everything gets cleared. So again, you saw the way that I did that was by telling Acture to write text in these boxes, or by telling Acture to write text of blankness. Again, what I would probably do is have both of these calculated horizontally for the week totals, and then I would calculate each day to make sure people haven't gone over their day allotments, either by mistake or for some other reason. Brian says, I love how you can do all these interactions fairly easy, no code or anything. Lovely. I agree. So let's take a look at our original project and see, is this kind of enough for now? And if so, we would move on to the interfaces for other users who are going to use the same system, but from another angle. So we had the workers who were going to put in their time, but we had project managers who were going to put in the project, assign the workers to the project, assign the number of hours they expect the worker to work on the project. That was the second interface. And then eventually we'll build a third interface, which is what would a dashboard look like for someone who's trying to compare hours worked maybe for a team to hours estimated and see where things are going wrong. So let's see. This was, people are dedicated to different projects. These are some of the assumptions we made. And then this was a future feature we were going to work on after these. Okay, I think we might be pretty good with this interface. Oh, another thing we were going to do, we talked about this in episode 2, I think, was enter by times worked. So we realized some people don't necessarily know that they worked 4 hours. They know that they worked 8 to 10 and 2 to 4. Well, we would have to let them put in all of those times, and then we would calculate the hours for them. I didn't build that out, but I'm saying from a product perspective, if we felt or knew that that's something that would benefit the user, and that was more of a time saver than, hey, how many hours did you work today on this project? Then I would build that out. And so I would end up having kind of 2 interfaces here. And one would be, I want to enter the total hours. And again, a content person would make this say something better. Or I want to enter it by the times I worked. I worked 8 to 9:30 and then 1 to 4. So I did not build that out on this, but that is an idea that I would experiment with. And ultimately, I would take it to usability testing. And I would try to see if there is a strong preference for one way to enter time, or if it's kind of split and we need to do both. And also, if you're doing an MVP, then maybe you take off these radio buttons and there's only one way to enter time. Sometimes systems don't give you these choices. But when we think about people being different and having different use cases, and maybe they don't want to add this up, now we're cooking with gas. Also, we have to wonder, again, for a future version of this, how can we simplify this even more? Well, what if this had a timer system where people could start a timer and say, this is a timer for project 1, 2, 3, and then the system just took it in, and at the end of the week people could review this and see if they wanted to change it. So there's lots of different things that we could build into this over time, but if we imagine kind of an MVP or an early version 1, we might want to start people with one way to put in time and grow or expand that as we go. Surya says, I love your work. I'm going to learn from the first episode so I can get the full idea and implement it on my live project as well. Perfect. That's why I'm doing these, and tell everybody. If we feel like this is kind of enough for now for the end user version of entering their time, then next we would have to look at the project manager, who has a lot more features and functions. So let's rename this page so I can remember it for later. This will be the interaction design for the worker bee. And now we can create a new page that, there we go. This will be the interaction design for the project manager. And again, I'm going to start, if you saw episode 1 or 2, you know what I do. I start just throwing things on the screen that I know this thing has to do. And then I kind of cycle back and try to keep making it better. So let's see. So for this, we need people to be able to enter a project. We need people to be able to assign people to a project, and we need them to assign how many hours they expect people to work on the project. That's technically 3 different tasks. So now we have to ask ourselves, should these tasks happen on the same page or screen, or are these really separate tasks that should happen on separate screens? Before I answer that, I'm just going to start throwing stuff on the same screen and see how I feel about it, and see if it's simple or how it can be improved, and maybe break it up later. So let's start. I'm going to jump back to my worker bee page just so I can grab this giant text. And let's say that the first thing people can do here is enter a new project. So we've got enter a new project. We're also going to have edit a project, right? Hypothetically, there's delete a project. So hold on. Let's go backwards a little bit. Let's say we have projects, and this is going to be some sort of list. And Brian says, seems like a great way to approach creative things. Just start throwing some things on the canvas and redefine later. Get over some mental hurdles. Yeah. So I would start with projects. So let's go back to the other interface. Now, why am I moving back and forth to the other interface? These are different users doing different tasks. Because in general, where you can have things feel and be consistent, it's just going to help everybody. Helps you, helps front-end developers, and if you ever have a worker bee who becomes a project manager, it'll look familiar to them. Hey, this looked like the interface I was using. So let's say we've got these two projects. Let's say these are our only current projects. But one thing you have to remember whenever you're dealing with a list or a data table is scaling. And by scaling, I mean, what if we had 100 projects? What if we had 1,000 projects? So I'm going to have to come back later, hypothetically, and build some sort of sort or filter for projects so that there's an easy way for people to find the ones that they want. So I'm just going to make a quick note to myself, and I'm going to write sort or filter to easily find projects. So that's just a note to myself to remember to come in and build that later. And in fact, since we're thinking data table, I probably don't want these. So in fact, let's start fresh. So again, don't be afraid to do something and undo it and redo it. Ultimately, you're trying to make the best design for the users. And right now on this screen, our users are going to be project managers. So I'm going to separate out the number from the name. Why? Because I'm thinking data table and I'm thinking sorts and filters. That means they might want to sort by project number in number order. Well, that means the numbers or names or code names of projects have to be separate from the full text name of the project so that these can be sorted or filtered on separately. So let's say we have project 1, 2, 3, and that was called Larry something. I don't remember. I made these up weeks ago. I don't remember anymore. This was Larry Update, and the other was named after our good friend Iten. So this is the Larry Update project, and I'll just copy and paste quickly. Now again, it's up to you how you want to format the data table. Should it have lines and look like a grid? I'm not going to worry about that now. For now, I am just going to start getting some stuff on the page. This is the I-10 helicopter project, which was a joke we had running last time. Solomon says, do you think it's important to keep initial iterations or design ideas when putting together interactions? If I feel like I like something I've done, but I don't need it right now, I usually create a page in my Acture file called Unused Ideas, and I copy and paste it there. But if I've really just kind of made a mistake or made something that isn't really good and I'm improving it, I don't always keep it. It depends on whether I think like, ooh, this is good, but not for here. Then I would keep it on my Unused Ideas page, but not in this case. So here, think about what we need to do. We might need to, we could delete a project, but that's really unlikely because you would only delete a project if it were a mistake. You know, I think once people have entered time or something, we're not going to let people delete a project, right? We don't want anyone to delete a project by mistake. So that means we've got some other functions that we need to think about. Now, Acture's icons are sometimes a little bit outdated, but I'm just going to use them as placeholders, knowing that a visual designer will do a much better job. So I can say, give me, so let's say that some of the key things I might want to do with a project could be archiving it. Let's say another thing I might want to do with a project could be to delete it. So let's see if I've got like a trash can, though again, I would turn to a visual designer for something better. Trashy trash, here we go. And of course, I would have a, are you sure you want to do this? Because chances are they don't want to delete the project. So don't let them easily delete a project, y'all. Make it hard. That's when I would do like an are you sure? Because we don't want people to accidentally delete a project. And then they probably will need to edit the project. So we can do edit pencil icon. And again, these might not be the best icons. They might not match our design system. So I'm just throwing them here for now, just so that we have placeholders for these functions. Another thing we didn't do on the last screen was we did not do a mobile version. So that's something that we can look at circling back to later. Let's erase this for now. And here I'm just going to give these a nice distribute. Where did that go? Oh, it's over here. Oh, Acture. Okay, I guess I had them distributed. Okay, save. So those might be some key things that you'll want to do with existing projects. So hypothetically, this would be available here as well. Notice I tend to space my icons fairly deliberately. That's because I'm thinking that it's good to space these out. You don't want to put them so close together that people pick the wrong thing. But again, we have to take a look at what our design system calls for or the like. But I do prefer that things be nicely spaced out to reduce possibility of errors. And certainly if there were a mobile-friendly version of this, we are supposed to space things out so that people don't, we say fat finger, but even if you don't have fat fingers, you can click the wrong thing. So I didn't make my sort or filter yet, but I've got projects. We are going to need to let people create a new project. So what's a good icon for new? Maybe a plus sign. Again, we can battle later over what are the better icons for things, but for now, I'm going to use a plus. I'm not going to worry about coloring these because, again, that would come from a design system or a visual designer or the like. So, and again, depending upon how you want to do these or what's in your design system, you might be putting labels under these. So I'm being a little bit lazy here. I haven't put labels under these, but we certainly could put labels under these. So I'll just do one just as an example. So maybe this is add new. And this can go under here, though usually labels have tiny fonts. So I could create a new text style, and we could say, give me tiny icon label. And maybe that's going to be 10-point font. And it's going to be centered under the icon. And let's try that. So I've created a style. Now I have to apply the style. Tiny icon label. And there it is. So again, really depends on your styling and style guide. Maybe there's more space between the icon and the words. I'm not going to get hung up on that right now. I'm just thinking more about building the features and functions that are required here and that match the user needs. So people need to be able to edit a project or archive a project or delete a project. And you would need to consider, do we need to check if people are double dog sure that they want to delete these things or archive these things? Now, some people say, follow the Gmail model. Let them do it and then give them 10 seconds to undo it. That might work for archiving because that's not as big of a disaster. You didn't erase anything, you just archived it, and that just really has to do with how the database sees it. But certainly with deleting, we don't want to make that too easy. So if I wanted to prototype this in Acture, make it a little bit more realistic, and I'm not using repeaters, I will just super cheesy fake this out. I could put these into a dynamic panel. Now, if you know Axure, you might say, Deb, why aren't you grouping them? I'm a serial ungrouper, so I tend to not put things into groups. I tend to put them into panels. That's just my Axure style. And if you don't know Axure, you don't know what I'm talking about. But if you do know Axure, my style is more panels than grouping. So I'm going to drop these guys into a dynamic panel, and I'm going to call it Project 1 Panel. And then we'll drop these guys into a panel and call it Project 2. Now, why am I doing this? Because I'm going to create a function in Axure where when you archive Project 1, it disappears and Project 2 moves up, just to make this realistic. And that way I can test to see, does this work? Does it look good? Is it simple? Was it easy to understand? Did I miss something? So we can build that out. I'm also going to make this panel a little bit taller. If you're familiar with Axure, you'll know why I'm doing that. If you're not familiar with Axure, you don't know why I'm doing anything. But the idea is that that will help this move up into this space when this thing disappears. So if I want to say, when we archive this, archive it immediately and give them 10 seconds to undo it. Then I have to build the message that comes up that says, this was successfully archived. Do you want to undo this? It also means we need to build a way to get into the project archive. Smells like that's going to be a filter, because I might want to filter archived projects or active projects. So let's say active versus archived, just as just a note to myself of something I might build later in a filter. Now, if I wanted to do realistic filters in Axure with this data table, it would be best to use a repeater. I'm not building repeaters now just because I'm trying to go fast with high-level ideas. But if you were using Axure and you wanted to realistically sort and filter these things, we could build a repeater. Now I'm wondering if I should just build a repeater, y'all. It's complicated, but it would work. I haven't built one in Axure 10 yet. I've been avoiding Axure 10. Let's give it a try. Okay, so this is not first name. Axure does this weird default with this. How do I rename column? Okay, so this will be, we'll call this project underscore number. And this one will end up being project underscore name. And this one, we don't need a score. So right now we don't have other information, so I don't need other columns. So let's remove this column. So while I do this, let's talk a little bit about what a repeater is in Axure and when you want it and when you don't want it. So repeaters are anytime you want to take realistic data and you want to try to realistically sort, filter, or manipulate it. And so imagine you had like an Excel spreadsheet or something and you wanted to deal with this data. You would be able to do that in Axure. Now, it's not a live data set. You cannot connect this to a real live data set and have it live update. You have to kind of use it within Axure. But again, for the purposes of a prototype, that's probably good enough. So let's put in, and you can see that as I am putting in the data, it's showing me this stuff over here, but it's wrapping funny and there's lines and I may or may not want that. So what I can do is I can go over into style and I should be able to clean up some of this styling. Let's see, it says border equals 0. So why do I have borders? Boo. I am not as familiar with how Axure 10 did this, but let's go. Oh, I see, because this has a line on the bottom. Caught ya. Do not want the line. So don't know what this box is. What is this box? See, because when Axure puts stuff here, I kind of don't know what they've done. So this is this, and this is this, and this is a line. Can I pick the line and get rid of it? Or are these built into the styles? Oh, here it is. Border 0. Okay, now I'm getting rid of the lines. I don't know why Acture did a bunch of stuff by default that now I have to undo. Do not love. Let's make this box wider so that we're not getting the words wrapped. And let's go back and take a look at how it's looking. Okay, so that's the thing. There should be a way to pad this. Let's see, is it this, or would I have to do it? No, that's just the bottom. So I need to go into each of these and say I need padding. Okay, here we go. Bottom. Let's try 20. And did that work? Ooh, that doesn't look quite right. Let's also, I should really create styles for these, but I'm going to go fast and I'm going to say, well, it says middle align. So why? Oh, Acture. I should have built this in Acture 9. This is a little bit funky looking, but for now, we'll run with it. And let's see, we also want to grab these icons since every table row will have them. So let's grab them and let's add them to this repeater. Oof, I really prefer Acture 9. Well, really, I prefer Acture 8. It's a whole other story. All right, so here we go. Let's see how this is looking. Okay, it's a little bit squished, but we're getting there. So let's erase this and let's build this. And again, you might be wondering what's the difference between A and B. There isn't a huge difference between A and B. I am just building knowing that I want to build some realistic functionality into this, and that is going to require, oh, I know what I should do. I should make these boxes taller. Let's make them 50 high and maybe kill that padding. Maybe I don't need the padding. Okay, getting there, getting there. Sorry, this was easier under previous versions of Acture. Why? All right, I'm eyeballing this, but that looks pretty close to middle aligned. Okay, so again, a repeater allows us to make a data table, and it's called a repeater because you build a model of what it looks like, and then Acture repeats that over and over for the data table. So this means that I could build it so that when people click the archive button, we remove that repeater row. But thinking ahead, we need the message saying this has been successfully archived. Do you want to undo it? So I'm going to build, let's see, did I build a component for something like that? These are some components I built ahead of time. Nope, doesn't look like I built anything for that. So let's make a giant box. I'm going to make it down here and then I'll move it later to where I want it to be. And so let's say we've got a box and maybe it has rounded corners and it's a fun color. So again, normally I would build that here. So over here, this is the style manager, and this lets me kind of create almost like CSS styles I'm going to use over and over. So this might be success, I can't spell, I want to go to sleep, success message box. And let's say it's got fun rounded corners. Everybody loves fun rounded corners. Let's see. I don't remember how much I've been rounding corners. We'll go back later if it's inconsistent. We need a fill color. So let's say we've got a giant dark green box. I've got green here, but I'd like it to be darker. So here we go. Let's say we do a dark, super dark green. And let's say we're going to do white text on it. So let's say some large white text, font color white. Oh, almost white. Excuse me. Okay. Let's try that. We made a style. Now we apply the style. success message box. So we might say here, successfully archived. Now somebody's going to want to possibly undo this. So we could say undo, and let's pretend that that's some sort of link that people could click. And let's say that this shows up right at the top middle of our page. And again, where it shows up, I can always mess with later. But for now, let's say it's going to show up here. I could really put this anywhere because I'm probably going to pin this and have it show up on top of stuff. So that's what I usually do with my messages. So to do that in Acture, I create a dynamic panel. I will call this my message panel, though it would be great if I spelled it right. And it's going to start out hidden. Nobody sees this. So this is hide. When you see that yellow thing, that means there is something in Acture that people cannot see by default. It is hidden. So I only want that to be shown later. But also, I am going to pin it to the browser. So what does that mean? Pin to browser is when you have something that's sticky, something that always shows up. Let's do it together. Something that always shows up horizontally centered, and something that shows up at the top, but we could say with a certain margin. It always shows up 100 pixels from the top, or 80 pixels from the top, or whatever number you decide. Or it could show up in the middle of the page, but that would be a little bit weird. These types of messages I usually think about as showing up towards the top of a page. So let's say that this shows up at I wanted the whole panel. I don't like Acture 10. We'll have it be at Y20, but we'll see how that looks later. We can always change it. So now let's make it so that when people click archive, we remove the row from the repeater and we show them the message. So I have to build the interaction. Hey Acture, what happens if people click this archive icon? Or it could be the icon with the text, they click the text, whatever, you know, this is the intention. Well, the first thing we have to do is go into the repeater and remove the row. So delete rows. Oops, I never named my repeater, boo. Table repeater, this. And then I want to show my message panel with a fancy fade in. And then, because it's not going to stay there forever, we're going to wait. You know, let's say we give people 10 seconds, 10,000 milliseconds, and then we hide the message. Hide, message panel, hide, with a sexy fade out. All right, let's see if this works. This was a little seat of pants, but let's give it a try. I need to do a fresh preview because we created a new page and Acture preview didn't catch up with that yet. Okay, here we go. Let's see how it works. Count to 7 hippopotamuses and then that message should go away. And it does. Now, of course, for your testing, you could always do a shorter thing, or you could leave it up there, see how it works. And because this is a repeater, that should work for whichever one I click. Because I said remove this row, so it's going to remove the row that matches where I clicked on the icon. Now, of course, I didn't make the undo work. That could be another thing that I would do. But of course, I deleted that row. Oops. So it would be hard to get it back. I would probably have to build something instead that maybe hid that row from view. So that would be a much more work. It can be done. I just have to teach the repeater. Some rows are seen and some rows are not seen, and please temporarily make this row not seen. So this was a delete instruction. but I also have to mark a row and things like that. So there are sneaky ways that I could do to temporarily hide a row so that clicking undo would work to bring it back. But I'm not going to worry about that right now. I don't want to get too in the weeds. I want to make sure everybody is learning how I approach information architecture and interaction design and prototyping so that you can see how the sausage is made. Any questions as I'm going? We've got 10 more minutes together today, so we'll get a little bit further with this, but that's where I'm headed right now. Why don't we build, let's see, let's add a column, and this will be status. So let's say this is project underscore status, and we will say that both of these projects are active. And then later we could hypothetically mark an active project archived, and then we could use filters to say, show me active projects, show me archived projects. That would totally work in Axure, and it's something that we could play with here. Let's say we have a third project, and let's just make something up quickly. We'll say this one is archived, and we'll give it a fake name. We'll call it 456, and we'll call it Solomon Project. Okay, so hypothetically now, if we take a look at this, we're seeing all three because there's nothing here that said don't show the archived ones or don't show the active ones. So we've got all of them out there, but notice it's not clear which ones are active and which ones are archived. Now, if we wanted to, we could add another column here. We could move these guys out east, and we could put in another column, and we could say copy this box or copy this box, and make it show the whether it's archived or not archived. So let's see, where is on load? This is where Axure 8 gets me a little bit. What did they do with this? So I don't even see the onload for it, and that's where this throws me off a little bit. So we didn't teach where that goes. Where would we teach it? Reference page. Does anybody know where Axure 10 moved this? Because I've been avoiding Axure 10, and now you can see why. It's not reference page, right? Because it's not a page. How do I tell it? Because where it used to have an onload, and it doesn't. All right, so I'm going to have to look up what Axure changed. I hate when they do this. I wish they didn't undo things that worked well in previous versions to make them work in a different way that is not intuitive. Oh, connect widget. Oh, that's how they're doing it. Still wasn't intuitive. All right, let's try putting that there. All right, that wasn't fun, but we did it. So now we've got the status showing up, and we could write a, let's write a quick filter that would say whether we want to see archived things or active things or both. So we could do that as a segmented controller. We could do that as checkboxes. This is something that I would play with to try to figure out what paradigm do I think is best based on how sorting and filtering normally looks. So I'm trying to think of where I'd even start with this. But as I said before, just start dropping stuff on the screen and see how you can improve your own idea. So let's see, sort or filter. I might do as, because eventually we might have multiple filters. I mean, hypothetically, you could have a filter that says, show me all projects that are between number 100 and number 120. That's a filter. That's a realistic filter. So we could end up building a whole filter universe. You know, I think I'll save that for another week. I think building out all the filters and sorts would be a neat episode on its own. So let's think about what we can do in the next few minutes that might wrap up for today. We could do, let's see, here's the thing. We're going to have to also put in how many hours people are supposed to work. So again, let's make our notes to ourselves so that when we come back next week, we know what the heck we're building. So we're going to need, projects need, let's make a list. Projects need a number. They need a name. They need whether they are active or archived. They need max number of worker bee hours, I guess per week, or hypothetically you could do per day, but we're going to do per week just so that we're not endlessly building endless possibilities. So yeah, again, looking at a simple possible MVP, that's what we're going to need. And again, because you could endlessly add features to this. You could have people who approve this stuff, and so it has to go one level up. You know, we could build in so many things for this, but I'm trying to keep version 1 or this MVP a little simpler. Any questions? Because we're going to be wrapping up soon, but that's what we're going to need to do when we do add new project. We're going to need to make sure that people can enter a number, a name. Oh, the people. Don't forget that we need to add people on the project and max number of worker bee hours per person. So we might say, all in all, we don't want to put in more than 200 hours per week on this project. Okay, so how are we going to divide that by the worker bees who are on the project? So I get the feeling we're going to need both of these things, even if we were going for an MVP. There's only so simple we can make this, because remember, our system is eventually going to compare these maximum number of worker bee hours per person or per team to what the reality is of the time that people have entered. So we want to make sure that we're setting up the projects to capture the information that will help us later match all this up and either get it on a dashboard or email a project manager when people are going over time or things like that. So if you don't have any other questions right now, I'm probably going to leave it here. And I'm going to publish it to Axure so we can update the existing file. If you'd like to play with the published prototype, you can find it at this URL, xmi9z4.axshare.com. I think they're retiring axshare.com. It'll be Axure Cloud, but that's where you can find all of these things if you want to play with that. Now, I haven't yet put up the Axure file for it, but you can play with the prototype. You would just need to go into the file and view that and then choose which page you want to see. We talked about a research plan. We talked about some other things, and you can see this page and also this page, which has these elements. There's a gray thing back here that I'm going to need to take out. It looks a little weird. And then some reminders for me for the next time we do this. I'm going to try to do these shows every Monday. So just to check the calendar, we've got another show on the 13th. I will continue this. We've got Monday the 20th, we're going to do a different show that day. It won't be part of the Think Out Loud series. My boyfriend will be teaching people how to build their portfolio websites in WordPress.org. So that's Monday the 20th. I'll be taking a break from Think Out Loud. Monday the 27th, I haven't yet decided if I'm going to do shows the week between Christmas and New Year's, but probably not. So we're going to press pause on Think Out Loud, and we're going to come back to it on Monday, January 3rd. And then it's going to be pretty much every Monday. I will keep building aspects of this fake project. And then once we feel done with it, we will get a suggestion from you in the audience on another fake project, and I'll start building that and showing you how I would go through it. So if there aren't any other questions, let me focus back on a giant picture of me. Ray says, I look forward to it. Thank you, Ray. Thank you for being here. I look forward to you joining us again in the future. Thanks to the people who joined live. And of course, you can let everybody know that these are archived on the Delta CX YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe there and press like and leave some comments after the stream is open to help it in the algorithm. But the number one thing I can ask for any of you is to let more people know about this. This was only episode 3 of the UX Think Out Loud streams. But again, I'm going to start doing this almost every Monday. So there will be many, many more in this series. And make sure you come back and ask those questions live. Deb, why did you do this? How did you know to do that? What made you think of that? If I'm not saying it out loud, please ask. The whole point is to help people understand how we go from these product ideas or requirements to the actual designs and how we can keep making those designs better. So with that, I will play us out of here and say goodbye to everybody. But remember, I'll be back tomorrow. Tuesday is office hours Ask Me Anything, which I do every Tuesday pretty much. So come tomorrow with any questions you have about CX or UX in general or stuff happening at your job, and I will be happy to help. All right, so with that, I will play us out of here. Thanks to everybody for joining, and catch you soon. Customer centricity as business intelligence. Visit deltacx.com to learn why we are